Hi everyone. Thanks for joining in. So this session, this webinar is all about mobile app accessibility. We are going to discuss multiple topics, but primarily touching upon how to streamline accessibility across your SDLC. That is going to be the primary topic for today. And before getting started, we have few housekeeping items. Please note that the entire session is going to be recorded and the recording will be shared with you all you folks, right? And secondly, there will be a dedicated Q&A session at the end. But in case if you have any questions throughout the session, please post your question in the Q&A section. And even if you have any comments, please share your comments in the Q&A box. So we'll be able to address all of them. And quick agenda, we'll start with what is inclusive design. And then we'll move on to why mobile app accessibility is important. And we'll discuss accessibility across SDLC. How can we implement or incorporate accessibility across your SDLC, followed by a demo and Q&A section. With that, my name is Srinivas. I'm from the App Accessibility product team at BrowserStack. I lead the App Accessibility product portfolio. I've been with BrowserStack for the last 4 years. And with me, Lokesh, who is a senior product design manager at BrowserStack. Lokesh, would you like to introduce yourself and get started?
Sure, Srini, thank you. Hey everyone, I'm Lokesh. I lead product design at BrowserStack. I've spent a decade here, mostly wearing the design hat, at times also wearing the product hat nowadays. I'm looking forward to this interaction with all of you. Before we get started, I want to ask Srini a quick question, and maybe the audience members can also, some of you who could relate. Do you remember this artifact that sparked a lot of conversations and discussions on the internet recently?
Yeah.
This is also a question for you.
Yes. So I think I should be very careful with Lokesh. We have done some webinars in the past also. I never know what sort of question he's going to throw at me. So Lokesh, for this one, I do remember this. This got the internet by storm and Apple released this iOS version. And for me personally, I felt the design was great, but it had some aesthetic issues. I was unable to read the text clearly, and it also had some color contrast related issues. But why are you asking this?
I mean, it did spark a lot of discussions, and yes, I agree that legibility and readability of content becomes hard on some of these UIs, especially on the home screen. This looks great to look at, but as trends are evolving, some of these trends may not essentially be so effective in communicating the information that they tend to communicate or they intend to communicate. And this takes me to our topic of discussion on accessibility and inclusive design. If somebody like me who's probably fairly has as a decent sight and vision is finding it difficult to read something on that UI that we just discussed, there could be many others who could be facing a temporary, permanent, or a situational kind of a disability, or a situation that's leading them to not access these interfaces the same way as they're intended to. And accessibility, it becomes even more important in case of mobile apps because we're using phones differently from how we use our laptops. Our phones are an extension of us. Unlike computers, we tend to use our phones everywhere, whether it's indoor or outdoor, in different kinds of environments. And that makes accessibility even more important for anybody and everybody. And some of these temporary and permanent or situational type of instances are highlighted here on the screen. I remember trying to use my phone with one hand when I'm holding my niece when she was a toddler. And it definitely is not easy to always interface especially when the screen sizes are going bigger and bigger as well. So you can't operate phones just with one hand. So there could be many such situations, many such scenarios under which you could face or have the need of some accessibility settings or some way to access information the same way you would access it otherwise.
Makes very sense. So much sense. I mean, what I was trying to say is that Lokesh already has nicely put why accessibility is important. And when we are thinking about accessibility, you should not be thinking just about specific people, right? People with disability, nothing on these lines. Accessibility is for us, for all of us. The situation he explained, and I have also faced similar situation. And even now, we use all these accessibility options in our mobile today. With that, I also want to throw out some of the facts. We all know that smartphone usage has been on the higher side worldwide. But apart from that, the two numbers that you see, 45% of iOS users and 63% of Android users, they do use some sort of accessibility settings in their mobile apps. I use font size settings. Many people use color contrast related settings, changing the contrast, enabling dark mode, disabling motions, and so on. So these are the settings many people use today, which means accessibility is not just for disabled folks, it's for all of us. And we need to ensure that every app is built in a most accessible manner. And one more point that I would like to highlight here is that you can see that the EAA Act, European Accessibility Act, that was recently enforced. And basis our customer discussion so far, one thing that is coming out is that the awareness of making mobile apps accessible. People think primarily that when it comes to accessibility, we need to ensure that the websites and web applications are accessible. But the acts ensure that we or advises that even digital products, all the digital products for that matter, PDF, design files, mobile apps especially, should be accessible. Many people are aware of it, but this is something I wanted to reiterate here. So now we have discussed that what is an inclusive design. We also discussed why accessibility is important, and especially for mobile application. On top of it, accessibility should be done at the right time. And if you're doing it at the wrong time or it's delayed, then it has a lot of repercussions, right? First of all, we all know that we can land into a lawsuit, which is like worst situation we all want to be in. It not just it's an expense, but on top of it, it damages the brand reputation also. So which is the worst thing that we all want to be in. But apart from that, you can see that emergency fixes take 10 to 15x more or more expensive, right? You can even take the Apple example. There were like a lot of feedback around the Apple new design. They had to make some changes. This happens for every other product also. We always get to know from the prod, customers report it, and then we make some changes. This is always going to be expensive. There is a lot of time involved, effort involved, and resources involved. So we want to avoid that situation, given that the world is becoming more and more accessibility aware. So we should be trying to avoid all that. And secondly, when I'm building a mobile application, be it Android or iOS application, before submitting it to your app store or a Play Store, there are like strict accessibility checks. They are not exhaustive, but at least some limited checks that are in place. If you are not adhering to that checks, then your release timeline will also get delayed. So these are some of the reasons why accessibility matters. But along with that, you also consider doing accessibility at the right time. It should not be delayed. Cool. Yeah, now let's get into the most important topic for today. We wanted to discuss accessibility in SDLC. We all know the SDLC, software development lifecycle. It starts with planning and ends with launching. And what we have done so far, we have done multiple interviews, be it like customer interviews or secondary surveys and so on. What we have realized so far is that accessibility is taken care of mostly at the QA state. Mostly like 30 to 40% of the people, they don't even do accessibility testing today that we interact with. And even those who are very mature, they are doing only at the QA stage. They use tools like screen readers, they do manual screen reader testing, or they use some automated tools like scanners, inspectors. They use these tools, but mostly it's happening at the QA stage. That's what we have understood so far.
Srini, I have a question. You mentioned that accessibility during the QA stage. But I'm wondering why not in other phases? And I had this example over here, which is a UI of a simple banking app. Actually, I wanted to ask you if you thought there were any challenges, any issues with this UI in terms of a screen reader behavior.
Okay. In terms of UI, I think it looks clean to me. I have just quickly looked at it, and even before the webinar also, it looks clean to me. Since you are asking specifically for screen reader users, what I typically do in terms of whether an application is screen reader compliant, does it has any problem, then what we typically do is like do a screen reader testing, right? It goes through each and every element, check whether every element receive focus, and then the order in which the element receive focus is proper or not. And most importantly, the screen reader text, the screen reader audio, does it help the user or not, right? That is the most important piece that we all check with screen reader. But the precise answer here, I'm unable to find what are the issue that a screen reader users could face here. Possibly without doing the testing, will not be able to answer.
Got it. By the way, the poll responses are in, Srini, and like you presented and hypothesized also from our customer data that mostly QA teams are involved in owning accessibility. But we see a good portion of the design team, also a good portion of the audience member responding with the design team. So the next parts are going to be more relatable to this audience for sure, but it's going to be helpful for everybody. So this is just one example, Srini. I have one more for you. And then I'll talk about why we'll get into why we are talking about these examples. So if you could go to the second example, can you tell me if you see any issues, accessibility issues with this login form?
Yeah, just a moment. Also, participants, if you have any comments on these examples, please share. Possibly you can use the Q&A box only to register your comments. And Lokesh, this is possibly a little simpler one. I at least see a couple of issues here. One is the issue is being highlighted only with the color, which is like violating the use of color criteria. So there should be some other ways to highlight the issue here. Otherwise, people with color blindness will not be able to see what exactly the problem here. That is one. And another one, the issue is also not being conveyed in a text or something. So I'm not really sure whether the screen reader users will be able to consume this information as well. I really wonder that.
Sure. Thanks for answering that, Srini. So with these examples, I want to showcase how the design team can influence product accessibility. And if you could move on to the next slide, we'll go back to example one. And I asked Srini about the screen reader behavior of this. And here we have a reading order specified on that UI, that exact screen. We've just zoomed in a little bit for better visibility. And we can see that there are two specific areas that could have a catch over here. One is the account number and the other one is the transaction details. So if the account number was to be read just by a screen reader as is, it would have read that as 562, 8 times it would have said bullet, and then it would have said 4191. And same for the transaction details, it would have read that first transaction as target July 7, 2025 minus dollar 89.50, right? So these are two instances. If we rely, there's nothing wrong with them. They can pass accessibility. Screen reader user may or may not be able to interpret it because we are reading this information to a human, but not like a human. So this is where the designers come into play. When designers are focusing on these interface pieces, they are designing the details, they're designing each and every component, each and every pixel and its placement. So they actually get into the details of that account number and how it should be placed, what should be the exact spacing. Same for the list of recent transaction. While thinking of this experience, which is a visual experience, designers have the opportunity to think about the non-visual experience or the experience that is going to help non-sighted users. If a designer was to think about screen reader experience on this UI and at this stage during the design stage, they would probably guide their developer team to add a label to the account number saying account number ending with 4191, which would be a more human way to convey this information. Same for the recent transaction, where it could be labeled as payment to target on 7 July 2025 for $89.50. So even the amount and the numbers are being read like how you and I would colloquially talk to each other and in a conversation. And it will slowly start making this less mechanical and more computer driven and make it more human. So these are just this is just one quick example. We wanted to illustrate why this, but there are plenty of such things and nuances hidden behind this example that we could get into.
Look,
so if
Lokesh,
we can go to the next one.
Lokesh, your audio is slightly feeble. Can you recheck?
Am I audible now?
Yeah, now all right. Yes, go on.
So I live in the flight path and there's always like a plane flying above my building. So sorry.
Nice. No issues. Go
on. In the example to Srini, yes, you rightly pointed out, and someone also commented in the Q&A saying that there was a validation, text-based validation was missing. So again, when designers are designing this aspect of the interface, if they knew that this that the error state requires a specific type of a handling. In this specific type of handling, it requires multiple ways of communicating the error message. If the designers knew about this, they would bake this into their design. So there is also a little bit of awareness gap at what stage, what accessibility criteria can be taken care of. But definitely this is an example where in the design stage, while either designing this component, which is the input field component, or while designing this interface, there were basically these two avenues that were present for the designer to handle this scenario. And only if something told or someone told the designer that and ran a check on some of these designs or some of their mockups or components, ran a check on that and told them that the error needs to be communicated with multiple queues, and those multiple queues need to be orchestrated in a certain way. It's then just a matter of following that instruction once and then making it a habit and a practice going forward. So through these two examples, Srini, I wanted to just illustrate how we are moving accessibility overheads not only at the QA stage, but moving it to during the design stage and giving considerations about so many different aspects of accessibility during the design stage, which opens up room for the QA teams to do more. So yeah.
Moving on to the next section, right? This is what Lokesh mentioned. Initially, we started with accessibility in SDLC. And we mentioned that most of the time, the accessibility is being done at the QA stage. But good to see from this audience that it's already being done at different stages. And along with that, Lokesh highlighted that why it should be done at the design stage. It's very important. Most of the issues can be identified and resolved at the design stage itself. It's very, very important. But doing at one stage and not doing at other stages is also not very useful, right? Let's say Lokesh has identified all the issues at the design stage. If I'm a developer, I'm not following those changes, then it's again going to be very, very problematic. So we need to do at all the stages, and there are tools to do accessibility testing at the development stages. You can start with linters. There are like unit testing tools and so on. And finally, still doing at the QA stage is the most important phase. You need to do screen reader based testing. You need to ensure that your application is screen reader compliant. More than 60 to 70% of the disabled users are using screen reader, at least for mobile application. It could be different for web application, but for mobile, screen reader is the most important thing. So you need to ensure that your application works well with screen reader. So with that, I need to also highlight some of the challenges when you will be facing or you might be facing today when you want to do accessibility testing across your SDLC. And this is something it has come up in multiple discussions. First one is, at least not for this audience, because even though the team that wants accessibility testing is QA heavy, but I feel that other teams also owning accessibility testing here. But predominantly, it's always seen as a QA activity. No other team or other function wants to own accessibility at this moment. It's a big change management that is needed. And with AI acts like this, it's automatically happening. We don't have to push so much. At least in next 1 or 2 years, it should happen more. But the major problem is, let's say, if you want to pick up the right tool at each stage, I need to pick up a right tool for design. I need to pick up a right tool for dev and so on, right? And even the poll result have come up. Many people don't use any tools today, and many of them use screen reader based testing. I have some important news for users who are doing screen reader testing today. We'll come up to that later in the webinar. So I was coming that like you have to do the right tools, use the right tools at every stage, and that is going to be very complex. You have to evaluate multiple tools at every stage, and you have to do POCs. It's going to take so much of your time and effort. That is coming out to be the most important issue. And secondly, even if you pick the right tools at different stages, the guidelines that each tool follows, because WCAG is like mostly subjective and the interpretation can be different. And if the implementation for each tool at the different stages are not the same, then you might be seeing conflicting results also. So that is something people want to avoid to a great extent. And then, of course, there is a cost involved. If you are like you are having multiple licenses for multiple tools, then it's going to increase your cost as well. And finally, the collaboration between different teams, given that design will be doing something in silos along with that dev and QA, it's going to be like collaboration related issues can come in. So to solve all these problems, at BrowserStack, we are trying hard here. So this is BrowserStack App Accessibility Product Suite. We have tools for each stage. In design stage, we have a Figma plugin that helps you detect accessibility issues, the examples that Lokesh shared. Along with that, we also allow you to do component level scans. So when you're doing component level scanning, you can ensure that the component is accessible enough at the design stage, even before coming to the design stage or dev handoff. It's done at the component stage itself, so that you can ensure that your entire team, team that is using the design components are accessible. So that is a great way to start with. Then we also have tools coming very soon, starting with the linting tools that will be out soon within this month, using which you can identify issues at the code level. At least like we see that not most of the issues, to great extent, we can solve at least 30 to 40%, if not higher, at the design stage. And again, you can solve 30 to 40% at the dev stage. The amount of effort that QA has to put in will be reduced. And in the QA stage, we have multiple tools. I'll also demo some of these tools to you today, but to highlight some of them, App Workflow Analyzer is what usually people check. You can navigate through the different screens. It automatically identifies issues with some sort of a rule engine. Then there is a screen reader manual testing that you can do with real screen readers. And there is an automated test which you can integrate with your CI/CD pipeline. And also the screen reader automation piece, which I want to show you today, which is something we are proud of. So I'll tell you what are the reasons behind it. Cool. Hope you can see the screen.
Yep.
All right.
Yes, you can see the dashboard.
So, yeah. So we don't want to do a detailed demo. I'll try to cover as much as possible. We'll spend like 10-15 minutes on this. This is our app accessibility dashboard, right? And you can see multiple things for manual testing and automation testing. And this is a workflow analyzer I was talking about. So in workflow analyzer, what you can do is you can spin any of these devices. These are real devices hosted on BrowserStack infrastructure. And what do we usually suggest to the people when you're doing accessibility testing? You should not be doing at possibly one devices, right? You should not be doing at using one device, and you should not be doing only with emulators or simulators. You should be doing with real devices and also on bunch of devices. The reason being, the screen reader behavior or even color contrast, it could change, depends on the platform. You definitely need to do on both iOS and Android. Within iOS and Android also, you have to do it on multiple OS versions because of the platform nature. Because of the difference in the OS version also, these could change. So ideally, we suggest that we should be doing accessibility testing on at least 2-3 devices on each platform with different screen sizes, different OS versions, and so on. So these are the real devices that are provided here. You can spin up any of the devices, you can upload your application. And once that is done, we have BrowserStack rule engine. It automatically detects most of the common accessibility issues that one can encounter on a mobile application. So given that we have discussed this already so many times, I will keep it short for the workflow analyzer, but I can show a quick report of how does it look like. So I have just created some of the reports a couple of days, like yesterday, one of the report was created. So you can see the screen, right? So once the testing is done, we create a detailed report, and the report looks like this. And you have a bunch of screens that were scanned, and all the screens are appearing here. And on the right side, which are the issues that we have identified that are coming up here. So now if I want to see what is happening with this, so meaningful accessibility label for images, this is one of the AI enabled tool that we have released recently. So all the images should have a clear accessibility label, right? In this case, if I go to this particular element, there's a cross icon. This does not have any accessibility label. So our tool is able to identify this, and also it's able to suggest some meaningful label also. This label should be like closed flight status screen is the label that is being suggested. So this is one example. Similarly, we have multiple other examples also. We identify duplicate accessibility label. We identify whether every element receive focus and so on. And we check whether the color contrast is we check whether the app support both the orientation and so on. In this case, you can clearly see just with naked eyes, you can see this color contrast is not sufficient. So this is how the report looks like. And we also provide screen readers. We do provide both screen readers for Android and iOS. And on iOS, it's enabled only for enterprise licenses. So that's why I'm not able to see it here. I'll possibly show it at the end of the session. And you can spin up again any of the iOS device, any of the screen reader enabled devices. You can perform screen reader testing, how you will be doing it on a real screen reader enabled device, right? You will have to navigate through different pages, listen to the screen reader audio, and so on. And so these are the manual testing tools that we have. In case of test automation, I'll spend some time on this. So we have mentioned that we have to enable accessibility across SDLC, but we also need to ensure that it becomes a continuous practice. And how can we ensure it becomes a continuous practice? Like you can put some checks across development stage that whenever someone raises a PR, it has to go through accessibility checks. Otherwise, you want to block those PRs from accessibility testing, right? So that could be one like simple change, simple continuous integration practice that we can integrate to ensure that accessibility is done across SDLC. So for that, this tool will be really helpful. So what we need to do is like, in case you have a functional test suite available, in most of the cases, most of the team that are thinking about accessibility, they already have a functional test suite available for doing functional testing. Be it Appium-based test script or Espresso or XUIT, any test script for that matter. What you can do is you can integrate with BrowserStack SDK. We provide you with the SDK. Once the SDK is integrated, all you have to do is add a single flag. So I'll also show you how it's done locally. So I hope you can see my ID now. Yeah. So this is my sample code. So I have created some script for TestNG. And for TestNG, I have some sample test cases for both Android and iOS here. And I have just added a simple test script. It goes through it opens a page and check for something, right? Sorry, this one. It opens up the Wikipedia and search for Wikipedia and search for BrowserStack. This is what it does. And this is my test script. I don't have to make any changes to this test script. What I have to just do is I have to integrate, I have to go to my pom.xml and I'll add a single dependency called BrowserStack SDK. So you have to just integrate this SDK. When this SDK is installed using Maven install, you will automatically see the BrowserStack YML file here. And this YML file, you will have to make a single change that accessibility is true. This is the only change you will have to do. Most of the other values will be automatic. And in this case, we are running this test on multiple Android devices. So this is what it does. So what you have seen is I haven't made any changes to the test script. I have added a single dependency in the pom.xml, and I added one single flag change in accessibility true. So with that, what happens whenever I execute my test script, be it as part of the CI/CD pipeline or anything, you will be able to, one second. Yeah, so you will be able to see the test results here. So I can just quickly open up this one. So whenever the execution is completed, the accessibility scans happen in the back of the scenes. You don't have to make any changes from your end, right? It's completely automated. And you see results like this, how many critical, serious, moderate issues that we have found out, and what is the trend, what is the accessibility health across different executions. So this is very helpful. And you can again go beyond that, go and check what is the status for each test. In my case, it was just one test case ran across multiple devices. In case you have multiple test cases you want to run across multiple devices, then again, you do the same thing. Because as I mentioned, the issue that you encounter on one device, or you can encounter unique issues on different devices. So that's why it's advised to run it on multiple devices. So this is how it works. So just to highlight how it will help you, it will enable you to integrate accessibility testing as part of your CI/CD pipeline. You don't have to make any changes to your existing test script. And as your tests evolve also, you don't have to do any maintenance. It's automatically taken care for you. So this is one thing I wanted to highlight. And one more thing we wanted to highlight is the screen reader based automation. This is something we have just released in alpha. So we all know that, and I also highlighted many times that you need to do manual screen reader testing and why we need to do it. It's very important. But we also understand that doing screen reader testing is very, very, very tedious job. You have to go through each and every element, listen to the screen reader output. You also need to understand how to do screen reader testing. It's very painful, and it takes at least 30 to 40 minutes just for testing one particular screen. And usually you need to test all the screens and you have to repeat it on different devices. It's very, very time consuming. And this came across as one of the important concerns from all our customers. And that's when we built the screen reader automation platform in alpha. And alpha, what we are trying to do here is that we are providing you with a BrowserStack executor. So what this executor allows you to do, you can enable talkback. Currently, we are supporting only talkback. VoiceOver is something we'll expand, possibly in beta stage. And you can use our BrowserStack executor. This can be used in any of your test script. If you are using Appium, doesn't matter which language or which framework test runner that you use, you can just use this test script. And using this test script, you can enable talkback and you can pass some gestures, which are the gestures that you want to pass, right? It could be like double tap. It could be swiping left, swiping right. Or in case of manual screen reader testing, we use double tap to activate a particular element, swipe left and swipe right to navigate to next and previous elements. All these gestures that you can pass it to the pass to the executor, and it will be automatically doing all that for you. And once you have performed all the gesture, let's say I have navigated to all the elements in a particular page, what you can do is you can get the output that we provide you today. The output could be like, if I want to check whether, so the output is in this format. For all the elements that are there, we'll also provide you the actual screen reader output. What was the output that was given by the screen reader audio? So you don't have to actually go check one by one manually. You can perform all these gestures using the script, and it will just provide you a JSON file or a JSON response. Using that JSON response, you can check all the intended elements are present in the JSON response. That is one assertion that you can do. And if an element, let's say a button needs to be present, and for the button, the audio should be meaningful. Again, you can add assertions like this. So in this case, what you have done is we have added a simple assertion. There is a switch that is there, and we are expecting a description of master switch, and name and the state of the switch should be on. This is what our expectation. And we are checking for this particular element whether this, so using the resource ID is what we are doing that assertion. And we are checking whether it's matching our expected description or not. If it matches, it's fine. If it doesn't match, it will fail. And you can use regex, anything for that matter. You can play around with your logic to ensure that the label is accurate. So this is what we allow you to do as part of the alpha version. So you can use BrowserStack executors to turn on talkback, perform gestures, get the screen reader output for all the elements or one particular element using the resource ID, and use this output to verify or make assertions like whether the output is proper, whether the traversal order is proper, and so on. And you can integrate this as part of your functional test and CI/CD pipelines. So that is the goal. And in beta, we want to go beyond further. Instead of you making assertions, we want to do assertions and then provide you a report to you. That's our next step. We hope this is going to be useful for you, given that most of the audience today mentioned that they are doing manual screen reader testing. And if you are interested in trying out this feature, please free to read. You can go to this particular link. We'll share the link at the end of the session, and then you can request access when we'll reach out to you. So this is what we wanted to discuss as part of the demo. We didn't want to keep it too long also. Lokesh, would you like to cover anything else? Or before even going to the next section, we have another question.
Hey, I think I read someone's feedback. If we can leave the poll questions open for a little longer, in case there are more poll questions, so that folks can process it and then respond.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. We'll keep that in mind from next time onwards. So we have a couple of more poll questions. You can answer that.
Shini, in the meantime, I think we can.
Lokesh, what do you want to do next?
We can take on some Q&A from the Q&A section. I believe there is a question on Flutter integrating. How does app accessibility work with Flutter? Is a question from someone, if you want to take that.
Sure. So as I showed to you, I couldn't see where exactly that question is. Okay, but we do support all types of applications, right? Be it Flutter, React Native, or native-based application. Even if you're using Kotlin, Jetpack, doesn't matter. All kinds of applications are supported on the app workflow analyzer. The app workflow analyzer is using the rule engine. And the rule engine checks for the properties that usually we pick it from the platform level. So it doesn't matter which framework that you are using today, but we will be able to get this data, required data from the platform, and we'll be able to process in the rule engine. So we do support Flutter. A short answer to your question. I just wanted to double click on the rule engine that we have. The rule engine that we have is BrowserStack proprietary rule engine, and the same rule engine is used across all the different kinds of testing. You can do automated test, or you can do manual workflow analyzer. Both of them uses the same rule engine. This is another point that I mentioned in the start, right? If you are doing accessibility testing across your stages, and even within the same stage, if you are doing different kinds of testing, then you have to ensure that you are receiving consistent results. If the results are not consistent, then it's not going to be helpful, right? So we are ensuring that the same rule engine is used across all the stages. Even in the dev accessibility, the linter tool that we are developing, we are trying to use the same rule engine. And within the QA stage also, we are using the same rule engine. Be it you are using automated test or you are using manual accessibility analyzer. Cool.
Thanks for
I
answering
hope that answered your question. Lokesh, anything?
There are a few more questions. I'm going to quickly go through some of them. I did try to answer some of them as well. There was one that was typing a response to, which is currently someone is using the accessibility tool. However, they've encountered that the experimental rules are causing some issues for them. So do we recommend enabling them or disabling them? I'll try to answer this, and Srini, please feel free to add. I think the new rules support additional WCAG criterias, meaning now your accessibility tests have a higher coverage. Since you're facing some issues, we can get in touch and understand your use case a little bit better and help you figure this out. Srini, anything you want to add?
Yeah. I think you covered pretty much, Lokesh. And also, we are trying to push our boundaries to ensure that we want you to avoid the manual testing as much as possible. So even if there is a narrow gap, we are trying to use that gap and automate as much as possible. That's when we started using this experimental rule. We recommend you to enable it, and we soon come up with an option where we already provide an option to provide you get the feedback from you. If it is a false positive or a negative, you can give us the feedback. But in addition, we also provide you an option to mark whether it's an actual issue or not. That is also coming up. That would be helpful to you. So instead of you reaching out to us with that one flag, we'll automatically improve our rule engine, right? But we do recommend that keep the experimental rules enabled, because it provides us the feedback to improve our rule engine. And from our end also, we are trying to automate and help you automate as many reduce the manual work as much as possible.
Thanks for answering that, Srini. I'm going to go to the next question, which is
okay. I see one more question. Is screen reader automation only for Android from Ian? Yeah. Sorry, Lokesh, you were saying something?
I think there's a bit of a lag, Srini. I'm not sure if it's on my side. I was just going to read a question, which I thought was quite interesting. So what's more feasible, training a separate accessibility specialized QA team, or training every QA engineer to do accessibility in a shift left environment? Thinking about long-term scope and costs in Agile SDLC. It's extremely valid question and great question. And I'm assuming it dawns upon a lot of folks who are trying to streamline their accessibility workflows. But there's no right and wrong answer here. It depends totally on what kind of a setup you're in and what the organizational goals are. And I would tend and be inclined towards answering that not just the QA engineer, I think accessibility is a team sport. Not just QA teams, but the dev team and the design team also need to be aware of it and be in the loop. So to answer on the more ideal side or a more rational side, it's better if everybody, it's a skill that everybody is aware of, and everybody can do their bit to contribute to accessibility, so that it doesn't become an additional activity for us. Otherwise, it becomes an additional activity. But there are teams who have reached that certain level of maturity where not just individuals and teams are aware and equipped with accessibility knowledge, but there are specialized teams that are governing accessibility at a very large scale in organizations. And that is a model also that works. Srini, anything that you want to add to this particular question?
No, I think that sums up everything, Lokesh. So I also see one more question: how screen readers are being automated? I feel that's one question that's coming up. So what's happening with screen readers is that we usually do it like if you are manually doing it, you perform using touch gestures, right? So as I mentioned, if you want to go to the previous item and the next item, use swipe left or swipe right. So what BrowserStack does is we are mapping these touch gestures to our executor. We have already mapped these touch gestures to a keyboard navigation, and then that's how we are using executors to perform these touch gestures. So that's how we are able to automate this. So another question was around the same screen reader automation. You have asked whether it's only for Android. To start with, we have done it only for Android, but the plan is to expand to iOS as well.
I can
Okay, there are a
see.
bunch of good questions. Yeah, go
Yeah,
on, Lokesh.
there are a bunch of good ones. Someone's asking, what are the limitations of the tool? Where would you still need to be making manual checks? I think again, it's a great one because accessibility is not one and done. We cannot create, there's no tool that encompasses all accessibility into one and checks for it. So I think it's a great question.
Yeah. And also one more interesting question, can we integrate in unit test level, right? So definitely, that is an angle that we are also exploring now. I assume that you are talking about at the developer level, can we integrate at the unit testing level? So that is what we are trying to do now. Like we are starting with the linters, and then possibly next step is to give an option to automate at the unit test level as well. This is from Naga. So yeah, that's where we are working on. In case if you are using something like Jest, and you are already having some unit tests, and you'll be able to integrate BrowserStack soon. We'll keep you posted.
Srini, any thoughts on what kind of manual checks one would have to make outside of the tool?
Yeah. So that's a good question. Yes. We definitely want to ensure. So when we are thinking about accessibility, we should think beyond WCAG guidelines, right? That's what we recommend, and that's what all the accessibility experts recommend. WCAG guidelines are just a checklist for us that helps you achieve or ensure that your app is accessible. So having said that, even though we provide all the tools to shifting accessibility left, we definitely want to ensure that your mobile app is accessible via screen readers and keyboard navigation and so on, which is very important. So that is literally checking whether your app is being used by real disabled users. So whatever the tools that you need to just do that part of testing at least. But the problem with that approach is that you will not be able to do it for every PR because it's very time consuming. So what do we generally suggest is that use all the tools, any tools in the market, to shift accessibility left, so that you can give enough time for QA folks to do at least screen reader based testing, not just screen reader, any assistive technology based testing. You have to test for accessibility testing, accessibility settings, whether the setting is working fine or not. So all the testing should definitely be done at least for major releases. So trying to check from the real user perspective is what I would suggest manual testers to do. Lokesh, hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So what are the benefits of automated tests for accessibility in QA phase while manual testing is preferred in accessibility testing? I think that's what I pretty much answered. I'll just reiterate one point from that. So you cannot do everything through manual testing because it's hugely laborious and it's going to take a lot of time, and you cannot ensure that every PR goes through accessibility testing, so that you cannot achieve. So use automated tools to shift accessibility left, start from designs, work in development, and even in QA, automate as much as possible. And whenever there is a big release happen, or whenever as per the auditing or any, you can put some life cycle to it, some release cycle to it, and do accessibility test, manual testing using screen reader and assistive technology, so that you can do it properly. Will screen reader automation work without test scripts? That's a good question. So we are thinking from that angle also. Currently, it's limited only to QAs who have automation test script. So you can write test scripts on top of it. But we are also exploring ways wherein which users who does not have test script, how can we automate it for them? So that's also an angle we are looking at. We'll definitely keep you posted with that.
I think some really good questions coming in still, Srini.
Yeah. Does it support all native web and hybrid apps? I mean, this is from Mahisha. Mahisha, it definitely is like the workflow analyzer and automate test, the two platform that I showed. It supports all kinds of application, be it native or web views or hybrid apps. It supports all. Does it consider font type and sizing? What recommendation do you have around this for mobile and app? Does it definitely it's a font type and sizing. So what do we actually check in terms of the text size and or resizing, is that whether the font scales or not. So when someone changes their accessibility settings, let's say font type from small to large and so on, right? The text in the mobile application should scale accordingly, or someone changes from large to medium, then it should change accordingly, right? So those are the checks we primarily check whether the text is scaling or not. On top of it, we also check when it scales, it should not get truncated, right? If the container is not flexible enough, so that there are chances that the text itself could get truncated. So these are the different kinds of checks we do, we perform to ensure that the text are scalable as well as they are consumable as well.
Srini, I could see one question on I think I lost it just. Yeah. How is BrowserStack different from PA11Y or ACTS being integrated during the unit test?
Okay, that is from Bharati, I guess. So Bharati, majorly the tools that you're highlighting, it takes care of web accessibility platform, not necessarily for mobile app, like, or you can keep me honest here. How it's different, it differs in multiple ways, as I mentioned. And these tools are majorly allow you to do automated accessibility testing. You have also highlighted unit tests or functional testing. The problem with these tools is that you have to make a lot of code change in your test script. So you have to so I showed the demo, right? So in my case, I just added one dependency in the pom.xml, and then the config file I have just enabled accessibility true. I didn't even touch the test files. But in case of ACTS or PALI, what you have to do is you have to make changes in the actual test script. You have to trigger accessibility scan whenever you want. So it's a huge maintenance effort. Whenever your test case changes, you have to keep changing these aspects also. That is one. The second one is the detailed dashboarding, the dashboard that I showed today. Because it's being taken care of by BrowserStack, we are able to map your project to the particular execution. So you can clearly see the trend. Are there any regressions? In the previous build, everything was fine. But in the new build, there are like new issues being created. You can see the regression issues, check the trend of how many of them are new issues versus a recurring issue and so on. And the most important differentiator I could see or I want to highlight is the coverage part of it. So BrowserStack clearly stands out compared to these tools in terms of the WCAG coverage, be it for mobile or for web application. Our coverage is like it's unmatched to other tools on the market. And the open source tools, like they definitely help everyone, because if you want to get started, they are really helpful. But if you want to achieve good amount of coverage, then that can't help so much. Cool. Okay, so another question from Bharati again. If you are able to use this tool during design, develop, and QFS, will there be different use cases that tool will perform? So Bharati, again, a good question. So as I mentioned earlier, in design stage, you will not be able to automatically detect or find out all the issues. It's going to be tricky. The reason being, you can easily automatically find out color contrast based issues. As Lokesh highlighted during the demo, you can also check whether the label is fine or not. You can also check, our design tool, in fact, allows you to automatically tag the focus order. You can do a lot of handoff to developers. But whether the tool does, okay, I can take one success criteria, which is like, if there are any gestures like pinch to zoom, there should be an equivalent option for there should be another option so that screen reader users also can perform the zoom, right? These sort of checks cannot be identified at the design stage, nor even at the development stage. And development stage also, given that we are operating at the code level, we'll not be able to see how the application or even the websites are going to be viewed. So only in the rendered web page or in the built application, we'll be able to see some of the issues. Now, also the ones that I have highlighted, let's say color contrast for that matter, it could vary at the design stage, how it's being perceived at the Figma file versus how it's being viewed on a mobile application. Again, Lokesh highlighted one more option, that we usually take mobiles wherever we go, and we have to also account for the brightness and stuff. This we may not be able to take care of at the design stage. This is why we always need to ensure that it's done across all the stages. There is always some takeaway in every stage.
Just to add to Srini's question, of Srini's answer, my bad. During the design stage, you will have the option to not just test the design, but also using our plugin, you can test the components as well that make up the design. And building accessible first components will save designers also a lot of time in making their layouts accessible, because basic components, tables or buttons, and many different types of smaller atomic elements will already have their accessibility provisions done during the design phase. Subsequently, when the developers develop these components, they will take these into consideration. The way our plugin works is also provides a handoff without designers spending a lot of time on creating a specific handoff. While you're using the Figma plugin, it automatically generates a handoff for your dev team. And then the dev team can use this along with the design spec to make sure that accessibility is baked in as expected by the design team. So yeah, I think those are some of the answers to Bharti's question.
Yep. And one more question from Naga again. Sorry, everyone, like if you're unable to answer all the questions, just we are going through one after the other. We'll possibly take up a few questions for the next 2-3 minutes, and then we'll go on to the next ones. So her question is around like she has highlighted some of the, she or he, I'm really sorry, some of the important accessibility checks, whether keyboard accessibility, color contrast, use of color, headings. So to answer your question, text resize is something I have already explained how we are detecting it, and text, non-text content and text alternatives is something again we are checking, and we are also using AI to ensure that the text alternatives are meaningful. The example that Lokesh gave today, that how a credit card number should be read. It should not just say that ... right? It's not meaningful enough. So how can we ensure that the text alternatives and even normal accessibility labels are meaningful? We are using AI to check that. And page structure and headings, again, we are checking that there are labels for every interactive elements that should cover to great extent the headings also. But additionally, we are also checking, that's a work in progress. We'll be able to show it to you possibly 2-3 months down the line. We are again using AI to check that whether the titles are treated as headings and so on, right? Within the content, what should be the headings, what should be treated as normal text and so on. We are also checking using AI there. Color contrast and use of color, we do check today. In case of keyboard accessibility and navigation, we are ensuring two different things. One is whether all the interactive elements have focus order defined. That is the first thing we do check. Because if you are not ensuring that every element is focusable, then screen reader users will not be able to go to specific elements, right? That can fully skipped. That should be first. That is our first check. And secondly, the navigation order also should be meaningful in nature. Again, the version that is already available in prod, what we check is like we are checking from some using the hierarchy like visual layout left to right, top to bottom. This is how everyone checks or reads things, right? So we are using these logic to ensure that the navigation is meaningful. Again, we are using AI here to check are there any other gaps. So wherever we have done some experimental rules, we have released some experimental rules. We are using AI to ensure that these experimental rules are optimized. So we'll see a lot of new rules in the next 2-3 months where AI is being used. So that's an answer to Naga there for both keyboard and navigation. Lokesh, you have any other question that you want to discuss before moving on? We have only 3 more minutes to go.
There are a few more questions, but I think we just have 3 more minutes. So if you want to quickly wrap up, and maybe we could answer these questions next time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, everyone. There are like bunch of questions still open. What we will do, we'll definitely get back with a write-up for all the questions. Rest assured that we reach out to you with all the relevant answer. Moving on. Cool. Then we are coming to the end. Thank you everyone for your time. It's almost an hour now, and thank you for all the questions. It is very helpful, and thanks for participating in the polls as well. Looking forward to see you all again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. It was great interaction.